When I was little, I knew I was in big trouble when my mom would say to me, "You're out of integrity, Antesa." I didn't totally know what she meant, but I knew what she meant, you know? It usually involved me agreeing that I was going to clean up my room, and then days later, she'd still be carving a path with her feet to my bed in order to tuck me in at night. Well, I'm not sure she intended on this at the time. I think more likely she was just sick of my mess. This lesson has become one of the most important preoccupations of my lifetime. What does integrity actually mean? Where does the word come from? It traces back to the 1400s and stems from the Latin word integritas and the French word intégrité, which means innocence, purity, wholeness, complete. No straggler energy, nothing out of alignment, nothing missing. Integrity, like most other things in life, exists in layers of abstraction. It's helpful to look at it as a sphere. The outermost layer is the one my mom was pointing out to me when I was 7, and is the one we tend to consciously interface with the most often. When you or someone else is out of integrity at this layer, words spoken are not in alignment with actions taken, or in some cases not taken. This one usually has its most obvious impact on our relationships and our environment. If someone we're connected to says one thing and then does another, we're usually compelled to change our environment or stop trusting that person. The next layer is much less visible. It's when what you say, what you think, and what you feel are all in alignment. This layer is primarily an inside job. It's way easier to hide this layer through our defense mechanisms, which means it's also harder to pinpoint and address in our environments and connections with others. There's a whole interlude available here. It's shockingly rare to be aware of our own thoughts and in touch with our true, most vulnerable feelings. Without that awareness, integrity at this step is a crapshoot. A person whose words, thoughts, feelings, and actions are in alignment is usually well on their way to doing extraordinary things in their lives. The third layer is resonance, vibrational resonance, to be specific, and it governs way more than we realize. We may not think of ourselves on the daily as vibrational beings, but I'm here to tell you that we unequivocally, scientifically are. The hippies of the 60s were onto something when they flashed the peace sign and implored us to have good vibes. Candace Pert, Bruce Lipton, and Joe Dispenza are all showing us the scientific truth mysticists have been talking about for centuries. Most of us understand that the body functions a lot like an instrument and it needs to be tuned regularly. When we're out of tune or in dissonance, we can sometimes feel it. And in those cases, we use the tools we have at our disposal to do something about it. We move, we drink water, we breathe. We go into nature, we cry, we meditate. The truth is, though, many of us are constantly out of tune without realizing it. It makes sense, really, because when you look around, it's pretty clear that our environment is out of tune, too. So if we're only trying to be in resonance with our external environment and the people around us, without checking in on our internal resonance, it's not shocking that we'd also be out of integrity within ourselves without even knowing it. We're effectively trying to match pitch with other things that are off key. A physiological marker for dissonance can be found in the nervous system. We all have two parts to the autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. The parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for calming us down, and the sympathetic nervous system is responsible for stirring things up and into action. We need both to be functioning in resonance in order to prevent health problems in the immune system, the lymphatic system, the endocrine system, the skeletal system, and in our organs. When these two parts of the nervous system are distant for long periods of time, we get sick. The majority of the population, yes, I said majority, is dysregulated here, which means that they're functioning in what's called sympathetic dominance. In psychological terms, this means we're living in a constant reactive or fight, flight, freeze state. We are chronically stressed out. One of the greatest challenges humans face these days is knowing what they need when they're in a reactive or dissonant state, which is why this layer is so important. Remember that list of things that we could do and go back to when we're out of tune? Those are all healthy practices that activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is why they tend to bring us back into tune so quickly. You might notice a few common staples of the typical Western lifestyle that are not on that list. Coffee, wine, Netflix, social media, junk food, being busy. I'm not saying that these things are inherently bad, but I am saying that they're not always helpful given the state most of us are in. I bet you've been wondering what that beautiful golden core is, huh? That right there is the original gangster of integrity. Love. Love, just like integrity, is pure, innocent, whole, and complete. To be an integrous being means to be the embodiment of love under all circumstances, in all environments, with all humans. Compassionate, kind, resonant, inherently neutral, at one with the space between, no matter what. What that means is that your barriers to love are those 3 outer layers. And here's the kicker. While those 3 outer layers might function as your barriers to love because of our tricky defense mechanisms, love is also the antidote to those 3 outer layers being out of integrity. Whew, I know. Mind blown. So, what do we do with this information? A more apt question might be, how do we be with this information? This is the challenge. Choosing to be the embodiment of love when the world is reflecting to us a lot of other not so loving realities can sometimes feel like an outright battle. And surrendering to love is not the same thing as resignation. The concept of quantum entanglement in physics reveals something helpful here. We are entangled with the earth. In fact, the root of the word human is humus, which means of the earth. The earth and society is reflecting something really important to us about ourselves in that entanglement. It's a literal mirror of how we're doing, a planetary progress report, if you will. What if we use that reflection as a feedback loop? Choosing love, rather than responding in reactivity, is the antidote to way more than our own personal problems. It's the antidote to the climate crisis. The planet is clearly suffering, and we could choose to address that dissonance directly and superficially. We could eat plant-based, plant trees, and fly less. We could try to change our environment or resign to stop trusting it entirely. But if we don't also address the dissonance that exists inside ourselves, nothing will change. Let's be real. The planet's going to be just fine. Humanity, on the other hand, may not be if we keep this up. If you care about this rock that we live on, the best possible way for you to be of service is to come back to the original gangster of integrity within yourself. Don't just come back to love for you. Come back to love for humanity. I'm Antesa Jensen, and I'm a speaker who dares.